All right, you guys. So you have your level 4 exam tomorrow, and I'm going to get in week's folder here. And you're going to be faced with 4 questions. All right. One of the questions is going to have to do with budgeting. So you'll end up going back in week 5 if you're looking at budgeting. And you go into this module. And basically, if you were to look through the tutorial that I walk you through, I know a little bit smaller in size just because of the way it was recorded. But I actually, in that tutorial, as you recall, if you've seen it, I walk you through what a budget looks like and how one could be set up. In the question, I'm going to provide you an imaginary budget that somebody else has already put together, and your job is, as a financial advisor to this person, is make some recommendations to them, looking at their budget, where they could cut their spending, so that way they could save some money and start investing it. So if that sounds like something that's completely foreign to you, I would recommend just rewatching the budgeting tutorial, so that way you have good understanding of the components of a budget and where you might look to cut spending, because I go through that process in that tutorial. So that's one question that you'll be asked tomorrow. Another one will come from this week's first module, and it's going to be on the rule of 72. And if you don't remember the rule of 72, that was when we were talking about compound interest. In my rule of 72 and infographic tutorial, that's where if you watch the first couple minutes of that, it'll review the rule of 72 and what that can do for you. All right, so make sure you know what the rule of 72 is and what it tells us. The other component from investing that I do ask a question on is why, and explain to me why you wouldn't want to put all your eggs in one basket. In other words, why is diversifying your investments a smart idea? And that's going to come right from looking at this tutorial as well. Or you could even read through the 25 things to know. You could find a few pieces of advice there about diversification. So either of those spots would be places for you to check if you don't know what diversification is. The last question that you're going to be asked tomorrow has to do with insurance. And so that makes a good segue to what I want to talk about with you today. With the insurance question, you're going to be presented 3 individuals that want to get auto insurance, and you'll have some data about them. Like you'll have how old they are, where they live, like whether they live in the city or out in the country, what kind of vehicle they drive. And so your task is reviewing those 3 people, determine which one is the highest risk to insure. In other words, which person is going to be most likely to get in an accident, which one's the second most, and which one's the least likely. And so obviously looking at things like their age is going to play a role. The younger the driver, the less experienced of a driver they are, so they're probably going to be a higher risk, because that's how insurance companies will look at drivers. Just like, think of shooting a basketball. If you've done it 50,000 times, you're probably going to be better than if you shot it 0 times and you step up and have to shoot 3-pointers, although there could be some extreme cases where that isn't the case, and there are some great drivers out there from the get-go too. But overall, most younger drivers, data shows, are going to be more likely to have accidents until they get better at driving. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, where you live can determine your risk. If you're in a highly populated area with lots of cars on the roads, you're going to be more likely to have an accident. So you're a higher risk to insure. If you're out in the country where there aren't that many vehicles that for you to run into or for them to run into you, you're going to be a lower risk. So the last piece to look at also is what type of vehicle is the person driving. If it's a more expensive vehicle or a newer vehicle, that means that obviously it's going to be a higher cost to replace. So that may make the person have to pay a little bit more. Not necessarily a higher risk, but if it's a sports car versus like a sedan, that might put a person at a higher risk because of the tendency of people to drive a certain type of vehicle versus another type of vehicle. So keep those things in mind as you go through the insurance question tomorrow, just simply matching up high, medium, low risk with persons. And there was actually one question that I almost forgot. In fact, I did forget it the first time I recorded the video, but we've got it now. And I mentioned it in class, and I actually mentioned it yesterday as well. The fifth question has to do with the three C's of credit. And if you're wondering, where do I find information about the three C's of credit? You go down to Module 10, your credit and insurance introduction and materials. After I list the steps that you need to achieve to go through the module, I've listed the three C's of credit for you. You have character, capital, and capacity. And what I want you to tell me is, I want you to tell me when they're looking at your character, what is a creditor looking for? Well, they're looking for your credit history. When they are looking at capital, what do they want to know? They want to know about your assets. So, what do you already hold of value that they could use to replace payments if you are no longer able to pay off your loan? Then they can seize assets to make that settle that payment. And then lastly, they're going to look at your capacity for credit. In other words, what kind of job do you have? What's your income? Are you going to be able to make money enough, show that you make enough to pay it off moving forward? So know your three C's and be able to explain those. That's all I have for you in terms of reviewing for tomorrow's level 4 exit. Wish you the best of luck.